going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about a book, The Winds of Limbo by Michael Moorcock. Michael Moorcock is a fantasy, mostly fantasy, but a little bit of sci-fi writer, mostly from the 60s and 70s. I don't really think he's doing a lot of writing these days. He is probably most well known for the Elric short stories. I've read some of those. I've talked about them a little bit on this channel. Last year, I did some videos talking about the Chronicles of Corum graphic novels that are based on books that he wrote. And years and years ago, I bought this short book used because I was in a really big Michael Moorcock mood, and then for whatever reason I just never got around to reading this book. But recently I picked this up and I dug into it and I finished it in like 3 or 4 days. It's a pretty short read, and I thought this was an interesting book. I looked online, and even among the fans of Michael Moorcock, there's not a lot of people talking about this book. Mostly the people online who are talking about his works, they are talking about stuff concerning the Eternal Champion, who is this heroic figure who exists in many different facets of time and space. You can go watch my video on the Chronicles of Corum to kind of know a little bit more about that. And so mostly people are talking about those stories, and they're not talking so much about other stuff that he wrote. For example, this book. This was originally published as The Fire Clown, and I don't know why they changed the title to The Winds of Limbo. Incidentally, Michael Moorcock also co-wrote a few songs with Blue Oyster Cult, which is my favorite band, and my favorite song from them is Veteran of the Psychic Wars, which has a line about the winds of limbo roaring, and so I'm pretty sure that Michael Moorcock, that phrase was just something that was on his brain, and he really liked it, and he wanted to try and incorporate it somewhere, but that title doesn't really have anything to do with the contents of this book. For that matter, this cover does not have anything to do with the contents of this book, and there are at least 3, maybe 4 covers for this particular story, and I would say there is one that actually feels appropriate for the contents of the story. This just kind of looks like maybe some microscopic organisms that you would see in some weird LSD-fueled what's that story? The Magnificent Journey, where the submarine is in the human body, the Amazing Journey. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, this feels like something you would see in that. This doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in this book. For that matter, neither does the title, The Winds of Limbo. It was originally published as The Fire Clown. I think that's a better title. There is a character in this story called The Fire Clown. I don't know why they changed the title. I also don't know why they have this weird abstract cover of the book. But anyway, it's going to be very difficult for me to talk about this story without getting deep into some spoilers. And since hardly anybody is talking about this book, this isn't like if I was going to review, I don't know, like a Lord of the Rings movie and everyone on the planet has seen that, and so I could talk about it without really getting into spoilers. I'm going to have to really talk about some major plot stuff and spoil a lot of stuff. So if you are interested in reading this, if you've read some of Moorcock's other work and you haven't read this and you're not sure about it, I would say go ahead and give it a go, with some reservations. I liked this mostly. There are some things about it that didn't really work for me, but overall I enjoyed this book. So with that being said, spoilers ahoy. So this is set a couple hundred years in the future. It's kind of vague on when it's set. It is set in Switzerland, and there is a giant city that takes up like 2/3 of Switzerland, and it goes deep underground, and then it also goes way, way high up in the sky. And it is centered around, there is an upcoming presidential election between a guy named Simon Powis and his niece Helen Curtis. And the main character is Simon's grandson Alan. And there is this prophet in the deep bottom layers of the city called the Fire Clown. And he has these masses of people who come to listen to what the Fire Clown says. And he's called that because he is dressed like a clown, and he has an artificial sun in this large chamber where he is preaching to the masses. And the Fire Clown is kind of this big talking point among all the politicians in the upper levels. Simon Powys, he is an older, more conservative man, and he believes the fire clown represents a danger to the human race. Whereas Helen Curtis, she is a fervent follower of the fire clown, and she believes that the people need to kind of be shaken out of their apathy, and that they need to kind of change their ways a little bit. And the fire clown kind of represents what they need to do to change. And they're both running against each other, and then Alan is kind of caught in the middle. Alan doesn't really have any interest in politics. There has been a Powys who has been a president for every generation, and Simon has not been president, so he's kind of desperate to become president, because if he doesn't, he probably won't get to ever again. And so the story kind of follows this. It's not a sci-fi story. Even though it's set in the future, there is some space travel. This is really more of a political thriller that just happens to be set in a fantastical setting. And so if that kind of thing interests you, then I would recommend checking this book out. But anyway, Simon Powys reveals that he has discovered the fire clown has nuclear bombs hidden deep in the city, and he is trying to destroy the city. And at this point, Alan, he isn't sure if he believes that. He went to one of the fire clown's sermons, if you will, and then he's like, that doesn't sound right, because all these people were saying, hey, the government is trying to shut you down, and the fire clown said, I don't care. Let them come after me. We don't need to riot against the people in charge. Let them do whatever they want to do. And his followers basically said, like, I'm not listening, and then they all went, and they rioted in the streets, and it kind of just snowballed into this big thing that was out of the fire clown's control. And then there were policemen investigating his lair, and then this roaring fire erupted, and it killed like 300 people over several levels in the city. And so then everyone's like, well, the fire clown was obviously a threat. He had these weapons that went off, and it killed 300 people. And he's on the run now, and Alan Powys still isn't sure if he believes that the fire clown is responsible. And so this story follows Alan trying to investigate and try to find out, did the fire clown do this? Is he actually responsible for this horrible thing that's happened in the city? And I feel like maybe I will be able to get away with not spoiling this story too hard, but I feel like this story, it's really interesting until you get close to the end. There is a certain revelation about the fire clown about 3/4 of the way through, and I was like, oh, that's weird, but I was still buying it. But then you get even closer to the end, and there's another twist about the weapon that killed the 300 people, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I'm still okay for this. Plot twists, in theory, are not bad. A lot of people will talk about some movies or books where, oh, there's a crazy twist, haha, lol, and plot twists themselves are not bad. You do not want to be able to predict everything that happens in a book. So when a book is able to take a turn in a direction you didn't see, but then you can look back and you can say, okay, this makes sense, that's good. And a couple of these plot twists, even though I had no way of knowing that they were coming, I still felt like they made sense. And then, towards the very end, we get a couple of chapters, and I feel like this book would have been much stronger if we had just cut those chapters off the book. The last roughly 2 chapters of the book, I think if you had just removed them, I think this would have been a much stronger story. You have the fire clown, who kind of becomes like a psychopath towards the end of the book. This is some minor spoilers. And I feel like this would have been better if the fire clown, he had kind of a confrontation with Alan, and then they both realized we're not going to be able to convince each other that our way of thinking is correct, and then they both just went their separate ways, and then we never see the fire clown again. I think that would have been much better. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. This book is like 50 years old. If you're interested, go ahead and turn off this video now. Alan finds out that the fire clown is his father. He was an illegitimate child. He never knew who his father was. He finds out that the fire clown used to be a space explorer hero, and he was in a relationship with Simon Powys' daughter, and then Simon Powys arranged for the fire clown to be sent on a sabotage spaceship where he would die, and then he didn't know that his daughter was pregnant, and then the fire clown, he was out in space for like 2 years. He had some kind of weird psychedelic response to seeing the sun. Like his spaceship got too close to the sun, and his partner ended up like losing all of his skin, but for some reason the fire clown didn't, but it drove the fire clown kind of insane, and so that was what started his like, we need to, as a society, we need to stop thinking. The fire clown's whole philosophy is human thought is bad, and he talks about how like these machines, we rely too much on these machines, and he's preaching about that at the beginning, and a lot of his followers are kind of like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and he's a total hypocrite because he has a spaceship that he uses. He has this machine that creates this artificial sun that he has, but he's preaching against the use of machines. And then at one point, he convinces Alan, before Alan finds out who the fire clown is, he convinces Alan and Helen, who are both investigating together, to come with him on his spaceship. And he shows them the sun, and it like temporarily blinds them. And then after they're recovered, he says, I was trying to drive you guys crazy. Did it work? And this fire clown guy is just an awful human being. And it turns out he is not directly responsible for the 300 people dying. He had this machine that the police were kind of tampering with, and it went off and killed the people. But before he left Earth, somebody said, what about your machine? And he said, let it go off. Who cares? So even though he did not set off the machine that killed these people, he clearly was indirectly responsible for them dying. And then later, he admits that he was trying to drive his son and his son's girlfriend, long story short, he's dating his cousin, it's kind of gross, he's trying to drive them crazy, and he admits that he was trying to drive them crazy, and when it didn't work, he says, human thought is bad, we should all just roam in the fields like animals and just stop using our brains. And Alan says, you're an idiot. And so they part ways, and I feel like at that point, the fire clown should have just not been in this story for the rest of the book. I feel like from that point, Alan and Helen need to continue their investigation, find out who is responsible for these 300 people dying, and then spoilers, they find out that Simon Powis had actually planted the nukes in the fire clown's domain because he wanted to have a strong talking point for the election, and he wanted to be the hero that saved everybody from the fire clown. And he very nearly is elected president, and towards the end, you really feel like there is no way that Alan and Helen are going to be able to expose Simon for the fraud that he is, who is responsible for all these people dying. They do end up exposing him. I feel like that kind of comes a little bit out of nowhere. It's not quite a Deus Ex Machina, but they are able to find somebody who is able to expose Simon Powis, and it just kind of, at the last minute, it's like, oh, what about this guy that we could go and talk to? But then at the end, the fire clown, two of his followers who had run away from Earth with him, you find out that he used this machine to basically completely wipe their minds. So they're just kind of sitting there in a catatonic state. They're not able to talk or think, and the fire clown wants to do this to the entire human race. And it's really weird because this is a situation where I should be able to separate the art from the artist, but Michael Moorcock is admittedly an anarchist. He does not like government interfering with the personal freedoms of human beings, and so you would think at the beginning that Michael Moorcock would be on the side of the fire clown. But then the fire clown is definitely portrayed as a villain here who wants to wipe out humanity, basically. And it's weird, you never have anyone call out the fire clown by saying, like, you know, we're using our human minds to help people. Like, I have type 1 diabetes, and without humans thinking, I would have died a long time ago. And you don't have Alan or Helen calling him out on that, saying, like, we're using our brains for the better. If we all just roll around in the grass and don't think, like, a lot of people would die. And you don't have anyone really call them out on that. And maybe because this is set like a couple hundred years in the future, maybe they've eradicated all disease, and so that's no longer something that would concern them. I don't know. But overall, I was really intrigued with this book for about 80% of it. And then it came to a certain point where I was like, okay, like this chapter where the fire clown comes back and he's wanting to wipe out all of human thinking, that's a little weird. It kind of, I feel like he could have just gone off to Venus somewhere and just kind of hid for the rest of the story. I know the fire clown comes back in another book. It's something about Mavis Ming, which is another Michael Moorcock story. I have not read that. It's weird that the fire clown comes back because, again, spoilers, he dies in this. He kidnaps Simon Powis, and then he takes their ship into the sun. And so I have no idea how the fire clown comes back in a later book, but overall, this felt like a really good first draft of a story. It felt like Moorcock needed to take another go at it, maybe take a little bit of time after finishing it, and then look at it and say, wait a minute, this is really weird. I need to set up a different way that Alan and Helen can expose Simon. This is really weird. Maybe I should just cut off these last 2 chapters where the Fire Clown kidnaps Simon and drives him into the sun. I don't feel like it would have been like a cliffhanger if the Fire Clown didn't come back, because even though this book was originally called The Fire Clown, Alan is the main character, and him trying to expose, okay, what happened here, who is behind this, that is the core of the story. The Fire Clown having an opposing philosophy with Alan, that's not really the core of the story. So I have rambled a lot about this short story. If you guys are interested in a futuristic political thriller that kind of goes off the rails at the very end, I would recommend The Winds of Limbo, or The Fire Clown. So that is all that I have to say about this book. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, I will see you guys in the future with more. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.